Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Energy Capital Podcast. Today's guest is John E. Davis, a fifth-generation Texan, rancher, and former member of the Texas House of Representatives. John represented House District 129 in the Houston Clear Lake area for about 8 terms, serving from 1999 to 2015. During his time in the legislature, he chaired the House Economic and Small Business Development Committee and also served on the Energy Resources Committee, giving him really a front row seat to many of the energy issues that continue to face Texans today. After leaving public office, John devoted more time to ranching and land management out in West Texas. As a landowner, he used hand experience in hosting energy infrastructure such as wind turbines on his property, and has talked to a lot of folks about how that has included additional sources of income while allowing traditional ranching operations to continue. Over the years, John has become an outspoken voice for private property rights and allowing Texans to decide for themselves whether or not to host energy infrastructure, and his unique perspective as a former lawmaker, rancher, and participant in the Texas energy economy makes him the ideal guest to sit here and talk to what's happening out in rural Texas today. So, John Davis, welcome to the Energy Capital Podcast.
Dr. Josh Rhodes, I'm glad to be here and honored to be part of this podcast, and my first podcast ever.
Really? Your first podcast ever?
No one wants to podcast me anymore. Now that I'm out of the legislature, they don't care anymore. So now I'm glad someone wants to hear what I have to say.
Well, I feel like that would give you a little bit more liberty to say more things that would be a little more interesting, don't you reckon?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially these days when so many folks are anti-renewables in the administration that I'm a part of. I mean, being a conservative Republican, very supportive of our president and everything he does, except for the attitude or tone towards renewable power. I don't mean to jump into it if I want to, but just being a rancher just kind of hurts us. What's the attitude that's going on now? I said, what are they thinking? They're hurting rural Texas. But I'll let you ask the questions and I'll kind of get it. It's a little frustration and disappointment on my part. So,
yeah, no worries. And we'll get there. I would love to chat about that. Yeah, but I wanted to start just talking about your place out in West Texas, and it's a beautiful place. You let me come out there once. I really appreciate that. And I still have too much of that Axis deer in my freezer. Do you think maybe Jane Davis could give me some better recipes, some more recipes on what to do with it? Because I'm running out of ideas and I still got a whole bunch of it.
but that Axis, it's really tender. It's almost like a steak. You just kind of slice up a lamb and cook it as a steak, and it's good salt and pepper, and it's quality meat. So you can't go wrong with that.
That's true. It is true. Tell us a little bit about your property and how wind energy first came to your place.
Sure. Josh, I think it was back in probably 2016. My brother, Keith Davis, he's out of San Angelo. He's an attorney in San Angelo, and we have a place at the Concho County, Menard County line. And apparently Concho County had engaged with their school district for some abatements to attract a wind farm. And they approached us in 2016. We said, no, we don't want any of those ugly old wind turbines, on our place. And then about a year and a half later, they approached us again. And we said about 2017, no, again. And then a third time they approached us because they really needed us to be part of, it's called the Cactus Flats project. And it was developed by RES. And the third time we talked it over and we said, yes, we'll work with you. And so they negotiated a contract. And what they did, RES actually paid my brother's law firm there in San Angelo monies to negotiate a good contract. So they paid for about a half or 2/3 to negotiate a contract, because if you don't have a good contract, you don't have a good fence, then you have a bad neighbors. So it was in their interest to make sure we had a good contract. So we have 7 turbines out of 42 in the Cactus Flats project. And actually the turbines started going up in 2018 and started generating revenue for us about 2019.
Got it. So it sounds like you weren't too keen on the idea kind of from at the start there, but eventually you kind of worked it around. Said they needed your space to fill out the rest of that wind farm, but what was that kind of the final thing that pushed you over the edge there?
Yeah, we were the final one. They needed us. And I know, Keith, they did a good job negotiating some minimum royalty payments. Leave us for like 25 years, and it goes up incrementally every 5 years. It's readjusted and goes up like 5 or 10%, something like that. I think, Josh, what turned it to us is that we had the ranch land there and we want to make it productive. We want to be able to produce and basically just send money. Keith and I inherited that portion of the ranch from Dad, and Dad worked for Shell Pipeline. He was a landman, attorney, and did right-of-way work and easements.
Hmm.
And Dad was oil and gas. We thought, well, maybe, he wouldn't want us to do that. So we talked to Dad about it. We say, Dad, look, these guys are approaching us. It's wind. I know you're oil and gas and Shell. I'm pretty proud of that because I've put all of us through college and took care. Oil and gas has been good to us, all of our families. I said, but it's this renewable power stuff. So what do you think? And Dad kind of paused and he said, well, does it pay any money? We said, yeah, it pays pretty darn good money. He said, well, hell yeah, we'll do it. So we said, we want to respect Dad and the land. And, we are fortunate to inherit that portion of from the family. So he said, yes. So we did it. And it's just been a godsend because we have a lot of cactus, we have prickly pear, we have rattlesnakes, coyotes, mesquites, and it's just hard to make a living, to generate revenue, to be able to make it worthwhile. And plus, my wife is always on my ass to say, why are you spending all that money on the ranch? You're doing this, you're doing that, and you need to be back in the city. I say, well, hell, that's my heritage. That's my heritage too. And I said, no, I enjoy it. So now we are able to get some regular, stable income because it gives me stability because the price of the cattle market or sheep and goat market, it's high now, but it can definitely go low. If it doesn't rain, then you got more feed costs and it costs money. Then you got fences. And I have like about 8 guardian dogs that live out with my sheep and goats and protect them from the coyotes and the bobcats. And it's just a constant work effort, but it started generating revenue. If I can tell this quick story, Jane, my wife, if it's all right, she always wants to know, well, when do I get anything out of this deal? How's it work? You're always spending money at the ranch. I said, well, honey, I found out because my wife and I, you get half of the income. And so we got the first check came in and it was made out because since we were married, that's when it happened. So she gets half of it, but she knew it was my family. So she was being very kind and she offered that check back to me. She said, John, it's your family. So here it has my name on it, Jane Davis, and here's the money and sign it over to you or give it to you if you want. I said, honey, what name is printed on that check? She said, Jane Davis. I said, well, get to Jane Davis. What is Jane Davis's? And so she made that deposit of that check and she hasn't offered it one time back to me. So every 3 months she gets an ACH payment straight in her checking account. And she says, thank you very much. And she said, John, keep ranching. So I can keep ranching. I can raise my goats, sheep, cows. I got some Wagyu cows. I have a lot of fun with it, but it's work. But the money, the stable income makes it where you can pay for your ranch hand, pay for your feed, just repair the windmill, water trough bus. It's just a constant. But again, I'm producing food with my Spanish goats and my Dorper lambs, Wagyu beef. I have some Rambouillet sheep and some mohair, Angora goats. So I feel like I'm producing food and some fiber. And I think fuel, as I go back, it makes me feel even better that we're providing energy. Maybe I'll let you ask the questions, but I was just watching on Stuart Barney about AI and the importance of data centers, the importance of power in rural Texas. And that got me excited. These are potential rural economic development tools for us because we don't have anything to develop. So, I'll shut up that you asked the question, but hopefully that answered what you were asking me.
No, for sure. And I love that. I love hearing that story of render unto Jane Davis. What is Jane Davis's? I heard you say that a couple times. I love that story.
It's the truth. She can be bought off.
I'll let you tell us if you want us to edit that part out. Well, you finally got to it there at the end there, but you originally were listing off all the things on your ranch that didn't seem like they did very much in terms of you had coyotes and rattlesnakes and cactus and other types of things like that. And I guess, it makes sense that the wind farm is called, Cactus Flats, but you run sheep out there mostly, right? Like that's what you run out there in and amongst the wind farm, right?
Yes, sheep, goats, and cows. But the goats, I got about 200 nannies and 200 Dorper ewes and only about 30 cows. But the goats, I went to the market 3 weeks ago, Dr. Rhodes, and I couldn't believe it, $4.80 a pound. So for a 60-pound mutton little goat, is like $280. I've never received that much. That's a great thing. So the goats are actually providing more money than the sheep, but they usually about half and half, Josh, on the sheep and the goats.
Back in East Texas, we only had, cattle, so I was not as familiar with that, but that actually sounds pretty good in terms of like the per pound there, but it's been a little bit. Well, so what do you wish other maybe landowners might have known? Is there anything you wish you would have known kind of going into this that you know now that would have helped out?
It was new to us.
Yeah.
Keith and I really didn't know much about it. I know Sweetwater had been doing a lot. They were up in that part of the world, Nolan County and others. I'd heard about it, but a lot of the other ranchers were doing it. And then we didn't know much about it. But then as we delved into it, it just seemed like it made sense because, the Lord gave us a lot of wind up here and a lot of sun. And if there's any way we can harvest the wind before for water, for windmills to bring that water, bring it forth out of the earth. And we have now some wind that can turn and provide some income so we can keep ranching. And nothing really, I think the players were very responsible. The developer, very upfront, professional, again, paid for a lot of our attorney's fees because they wanted to be successful. And it just, wind and solar and even these batteries, I think, are just great that provide so many opportunities for rural Texans because there aren't many economic development opportunities for us out there, Dr. Rhodes. Is just not. And if we can combine that with producing our, the regular commodities, the sheep and the goats and the food and fibers, it helps out. And we get income from deer hunters too. We have deer hunters who are at least part of the land between my brothers and me, a little over 3,500 acres. We have deer hunters that help provide some income for us too. So that's good. But the steady eddy, that wind turns and generates that revenue for us. But there's nothing really I wish I knew this. I could have done something different. Not really. So it's been positive.
Well, that's good. So once the project got built, did anything change in like the day-to-day operations or what may have changed or, what didn't? Did any of the farm?
Only thing that changed is I could get across. I used to take, it's called Stony Lonesome Ranch for a reason. There are a lot of rocks and a lot of stones. And at one time, it would take me about 25 minutes to get from my gate entrance to the top of the ranch because sometimes you're only going 1 or 2 miles an hour. But after they came in and put in the turbines, hell, I timed it as 3.5 minutes. With my gate entrance, boom, to the top, new roads. I was able to get to one end of the pasture to the other, and that was a big help. So that's been positive. It's been frustrating. You hear others saying, well, these turbines, they're so loud and they kill your birds and you can't hear yourself talk. And that's a bunch of bull. And I've not seen one dead buzzard or one dead dove or those Spanish eagles, Mexican eagles, not one dead bird. And this is the lie and disinformation. The hunters, it hasn't affected all the hunters. That blends in. They do well. That doesn't hurt our hunting income, hunting lease on the contracts, do some indemnities and stuff like that. So funny, during the summer, July, August, September, those big old turbines would cast a shadow and you will literally see the sheep laying, following like a sundial, following the shade of those turbines or at the base of the turbines. It hasn't hurt at all. It hasn't hurt the environment or the birds. You can't even hear them. It's just a slight humming sound. They blend in. I think they look angelic, Dr. Rhodes. I think it's just the way those big, beautiful white wings. And I thought they were angels at one time.
Oh, that's great. You got some goats, got some sheep, got some cattle. But you come from a long line of like sheep farmers though, right? You told me a story one time that you're a descendant from Texas sheep royalty. Is that right?
Dr. Rhodes, you shouldn't have brought that up. I used to be chairman of the Economic and Small Business Committee there in the Texas House under Speaker Strauss. And in my committee, I would be up there and I have someone come testify. But when they got up there, I said, please, if you don't mind, don't make eye contact with me. Please keep your eyes low because I come from royalty. Johanna Wilhelm, my great grandmother, if you Google it, Sheep Queen of Texas is Johanna Wilhelm. So I have blue blood running through these veins of mine. And so I asked them, please don't make eye contact. And they usually went along with me, So thank you for bringing that up. I was trying to show some humility. I didn't want to talk about it, but I do appreciate you mentioning that.
No worries. I imagine that was a pretty fun thing to say to somebody in the middle of a committee hearing.
You got to have some fun. You can't take yourself too serious, Dr. Rhodes.
Oh, yeah.
You got to be able to laugh at yourself and have some fun with it.
Oh, no doubt. And, I've heard other folks say the same things in terms of seeing, wind turbines or solar farm like kind of a drought-proof crop, like, you get paid whether it rains or not, or, whatever the price of beef or lamb is. I think it works out pretty well. But, Some rural communities often have kind of mixed feelings about energy projects. Like, did you get any reactions from neighbors around you when like the wind farms started coming into your area?
A lot of my neighbors are my family. There's some kinfolks because Johanna, she had at one time like 35,000 acres. So the only reaction I had was my aunt. So Concho County did the project, and that's where the abatement came forth. That's where they also our ranch is in Menard County, and my aunt's in Menard County, and she saw those wind turbines. So she called me up, said, John, how do I get some of them? I said, well, I don't know, Aunt Lou. They have to approach you on that. So the only thing we've had is people want to know how they can get some of that royalty income because ranches are further apart, spread apart. But I think if you get into more of the urban areas or more retirement communities, there could be more of issues. Some developers may start considering making it kind of community. Those that are larger areas, the landowner has this is just an idea I've heard. I thought it made sense. If you have your turbines, then maybe those that are visible within a distance, maybe the community, they participate too in some of the income. They can have some and they see it. They may not like the look of it, but if they're getting a little money from it, they may not complain or won't see it. It doesn't look as bad if it's paying them some money too. So that's one idea as you get closer to more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think before we hit record on this podcast, we were talking about how we're both multi-generation Texan, but we actually met in Australia. Like we met in Queensland, Australia, because some folks down there brought us down to talk about how we do things in Texas. And that was one of the big differences between how things are done here versus how they're done in some other areas is a lot of that income, whether that's tax income, other things like that, it kind of stays local. It doesn't first go to the state and then get like distributed back. And that's a historical artifact of kind of a post-Civil War type how we set up like the Texas state constitution that we're under today. You brought up a good point about like folks in like more suburban areas. And so what do people in cities or kind of in these more suburban areas, if they're anti-development or whatever, what do they misunderstand about how rural landowners think about their land and property rights?
I think most people in suburbia support the idea of renewable power. I think they like the idea of it. I think where it gets to be a political issue, I think that's where the issue comes in. I think most people agree that if God gave us wind and sun, use it and harvest it and do that. So most of those in suburbia, I don't think have a problem with it. It becomes political. And that's kind of where my frustration is. And it may be because of the oil and gas industry. Back when I was in legislature, and I think 2001 we passed it. I came in 1999. In 2001, we set certain like 10%. I think Bush started it, then Rick Perry kind of finished it. We're going to set some goals of 10% to be renewable power.
Mhm.
That time we didn't have any. And now it's gotten to where it could be 40, 50% during the heat of the summer that it's coming from. Of course, most of it's natural gas, but at times it shifts to where it could be 45 to 55% of solar panels or wind.
Right.
Hey, that's cool. That's keeping the electric bills down for everybody because it's taking advantage of the sun and it's set up and it's free money. I mean, it's free energy. It's set up, the infrastructure's there. So that's keeping everybody, mama, happy in suburban Houston or Clear Lake or whatever community and say it's keeping their bills down, Dr. Rhodes, because that's renewable. It's already there. It's paying dividends. Why would we want to undermine that?
Right.
The reason why we want to undermine it, I think some of those in the oil and gas industry are feeling threatened that maybe, we're not going to be able to use enough natural gas. Oh, we can't do that. Well, hell, make that LNG. Let's ship it over to Ukraine. Make it compressed. There are plenty of uses for it. But if we can diversify, split it out, suburbia, they don't have a problem with it. It's political when it becomes politicized and you get the groups, the Michael Quinn Sullivan groups, people that are doing the work for Tim Dunn and Wilkes Brothers and oil and gas, and they're being their lackeys and they're doing their bidding. They make it political because it goes to Republican primary politics. They can get that 2 or 3% and they got you. But for real, it's a lifeline for us because it is economic development and it's keeping the electric bills down for Texans. It's mind blowing that my conservatives aren't supporting this or not encouraging it or helping ranchers and rural Texans. And I'm just disappointed and I don't get it anyway. So,
Well, fair enough. So speaking of like some of the folks that are in Austin or that are in, power now, like
before you get to Austin, but back to Queensland, when we were there to do that trip, What may, of course, whenever we were there, we said if you closed your eyes and opened it up, you thought you were in Midland, Texas.
Right.
But except for white-tailed deer, we're a bunch of kangaroos jumping around. But what made sense to us is most of the population in Australia, 90% is along the coastline. So once you go into the heart, the land, it's all desert and sun and wind, that it makes sense for them. And I think they were seeing that you can put solar panels, wind there, and then you just ship it, you just pop it with the cables over to the urban areas where the population is. And then they have a continuous source of power that's generated from the rural communities. And I think that's what we saw. And that's the same thing that we're seeing in our West Texas. So a lot of similarities there. So I just want to get that in on our trip to Australia and the Queensland, how that makes a lot of sense, that the rural can produce the power and it can be transmitted through transmission lines or cable, whatever, to where the populations are. It's cheap form of energy.
Right. That was definitely one of the takeaways, is that Queensland's kind of like the Texas of Australia, it felt like, in terms of, where the people were, where the resource was, the outback. I always had this like mythical idea of what the outback in Australia was. It's basically just West Texas with kangaroos, as far as I can tell. I mean, it's just like not too much different. But I mean, they're trying to build infrastructure, and they're bringing us down there to think about how we might be able to build it, or how they might be able to do it like us. I mean, right now, Texas also needs to build some more infrastructure. I mean, since then, we're building some bigger transmission lines. There's these AI data centers and like other types of things going on. I mean, if we need to build like a bunch of infrastructure to, keep the Texas miracle, the economy going, that you're part of shepherding a while back, like what lessons, should policymakers that are in Austin right now, what lessons should they be taking from folks like you that are, actually hosting this infrastructure?
You know what? I'm not sure if we were being recorded earlier, but I was listening to Stuart Varney and China, the threat from China, and talking about AI. And kind of the key in order to AI, that's the future for our children and our grandchildren. If we let China take over that, we're in trouble. From my understanding, data centers is part of the AI, is part of processing that, and that you have to have data centers and you have to have the space to build them and generate and develop your economy, not only for free America, for the free world. And rural West Texas has a unique opportunity to develop data centers that are power then comes behind the meter, not off ERCOT or off the grid, where you can have a Google or a whoever that they're developing these data centers provide their own power. And that's jobs for rural West Texas and income and economic development and jobs. And we're diversified, and it makes a lot of sense. And another thing, Dylan, even with the wind and solar panels, but also batteries, this whole battery storage system makes so much sense, Dr. Rhodes. And one thing I've always believed about one of the data centers, or they're working with the cities, maybe it's Amarillo, or I can't remember where, but if we ever have ERCOT has a shutdown, or something goes off, and this say Google has a data center in Amarillo, and then all of a sudden a freeze comes through or a major shutdown, then you can work agreements where they shut down for their data centers, switch it back to their power grid in Amarillo, then boom, Amarillo's got power.
Yeah.
And all these smaller communities should be able to, like here in Menard, Texas, they were trying to put in this little small battery storage system. And that's something that made sense. All right, put in this BESS, and let's say Eden or Brady, they all go down, but all of a sudden we have a battery storage here in Menard, then flip the switch and boom, power's for Menard community. Those are kind of relationships I think they can get to, and it becomes a backup. It's decentralized, and it just, again, it makes a lot of sense. Those are things that the policymakers need to be pushing in session, is encouraging development in rural West Texas, because it's not only rural economic development, heck, it's for our future, for our battle against China and Russia and bad players, that we have a chance to get a lot of wins by being proactive in doing that. So hopefully some cooler minds will prevail. But again, it goes back to politics, goes back to primary elections, go back to that 2 or 3% who vote in the primary.
Yeah.
And that's the world that they're trying to control. So anyway, that's my little spiel.
John Davis, you're a politician. I mean, I'd be shocked if you didn't have something to say about just about anything. Speaking on that, so you've been a politician in Texas, you're a recovering politician perhaps. But did your views change at all, like after you left the state house and kind of got more? You left the state house in 2015. You got approached in 2016, if I remember correctly, for the win. So did your views change at all from when you were in the state house, from when you were mostly coming at this as a landowner?
No, absolutely not. I mean, the legislation, of course, I think it was 2001 when Perry signed it, or I guess it was Bush, but when it happened, but it takes a while for that infrastructure. Then the CREZ line was being built too, Dr. Rhodes, if you remember. That CREZ line was coming through. There wasn't a whole lot of activity. Again, that was my first term and second term. I mean, I'm a roofing contractor, I'm in the legislature, and I really didn't totally understand that, but it was what my party, Republicans, conservatives were supporting and pushing was renewable power. Democrats think they're progressive, but we are. I mean, we're conservatives, and what's more conservative is using wind and sun that God gave us and use that. But I think it was unanimous. Maybe one person voted against it. I can't remember, but everyone supported it. Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, liberals. It just makes sense. Then they approached us in 2016. That's about the time I was getting out. But hey, someone approached us. Great. I mean, if oil and gas came and approached us, yeah, I'll take it too. I got no problem with, I love oil and gas. I'll take it. I'll take oil. I can be bought. It's just oil and gas, but we just happened to strike wind, Dr. Rhodes, and it just came gushing out. So when that wind, I say, turn, baby, turn. Now you saw me in Australia. I had my hand was turning like that windmill, and I was politician juices were flowing. I said, turn, baby, turn, and put that money in my back ass pocket. We got to laugh at all the Aussies, but it's true, If drill, baby, drill, I'll take that too. But if we got some wind, don't shoot us down. I mean, it's private property rights. It's our land. It's mine. It's a way to get grit, to use the land to support your family, support your next generation. Don't take away what I can use for my private property to sustain my family and to keep the ranch in our family and our heritage. Don't try to take that away from us or denigrate it, because it's a good diversification. I mean, it's providing so many wins, again, lower electricity bill for everybody. It's just massive benefits. Anyway, the diversification is critical.
That makes a lot of sense. You brought it up earlier. It does kind of boggle the mind right now that we're in such a race to power these data centers to try to win the AI race. And they're stopping new wind farms and things like that getting built in Texas using the FAA to, hold up approvals for things like that. But I mean, the math doesn't add up. It doesn't add up to me. We want more energy, but then we're going to, stop this one particular form of energy that happens to be, heck, it's one of the easiest ones to build right now, or it has been.
And Dr. Rhodes, I'm not sure if I'm talking over you, but it just keeps on giving. Every day, the wind blows, the sun shines. It's a gift that keeps on giving. Once that infrastructure's there, it's not a either or, it's all of the above. They all can work in unison. They all can work together, but it's a gift that just keeps on giving. It should be able to work hand in hand. But again, it's where you get in politics involved and you get this certain groups that just want to denigrate something, give me a break. But if you're going to compete with China, by gosh, we better get moving on it because it's serious.
Yeah, and you can tell me if I get this right. Sometimes my read on where kind of the political lines around, particularly renewables in Texas fall is like, if you're out there trying to actually make money off of the land, like you're trying to raise crops or raise livestock or other things, like if you're trying to actually make money off of the land as your primary source of revenue, like it's just a different revenue stream. Like it's just a diversification of that. But if you've bought land just because you want to look at it and you're not necessarily trying to make a living off of it, I don't know. Does that seem right to you?
Sure. As Texas, we're going to be 50 million in 20 years or so, or more and more people want to buy their little ranch out in their chateau or whatever out in the countryside, and will do that. And they've made a lot of money and they've done well. Good for them. Bring them on. And that's a good thing. That's economic development for these smaller rural communities. As we work remote, more people can get online and do it. That's fine. But also remember, to produce that lamb chop or that Wagyu steak or that cabrito, you need land to do that. You need ranchers to produce that. We don't want to all become entertainment industry where we got a bunch of deer hunters on the land riding around in four-wheelers, shooting hogs and having fun and hooping and hollering. That's great. But there's some of us that are trying to be producers to provide that food so they can sit down and have that lamb chop or that ribeye it comes from a ranch. In order to have come from a ranch, you need to have income and something that's sustainable, which is what wind and solar or batteries or heck, geothermal. That's a new thing too. Geothermal, if it's nuclear, if it's coal, I don't care. But these are sustainable by geothermals and wind and sun, and that way we can keep producing. We'll have deer hunters come out, they would get their money. That's great. And some people buy little ranchettes, 50 acres, 100 acres, and they get their four-wheeler and zip around, and that's fine. But don't be complaining about wind or solar, because that is what allows us to keep doing it, to diversify. And that is so important to understand that. As my pappy said, but Jane likes to take credit for it, it didn't just happen to get that steak on the table. It takes having an operation, and that when that renewable power helps part of the equation to allow us to keep being producers.
No, that makes sense. That's the second time you said, about deer hunters coming out there and, paying lease fees. Are you telling me do I owe you some money for getting that Axis deer last year?
Oh, no, sir. No. You got a special deal with me, Dr. Rhodes. No, sirree.
That's right.
No, you got a special deal. I also have some red stag now, Dr. Rhodes. Red stag.
Okay.
Red stag and axes are the best of the best. So you got to bring your little child out there to go hunting with us, and then get a little red stag doe or something.
Absolutely. I will definitely take you up again on that again. And speaking of kids, when you think about your grandchildren, future generations, those that'll steward the land, after you, like, what role do you think the infrastructure you have and maybe other energy infrastructure will play in keeping your ranch going?
I'm going to answer that question, but I'm going to also tell you another story, if you don't mind.
All right.
But I think for future generations, it just makes sense. I think it's in place, Dr. Rhodes, and the only thing that can change is the efficiency of those General Electric turbines that are turning, or the solar panels are more efficient and bring in that wind. The land's there, it'll keep growing. But when you mentioned future generations, it reminded me of something. And if it's okay, I'm going to tell a quick story. Elon Musk came to my office whenever I was chairman of the Economic Small Business Committee, because we were passing a SpaceX bill. One that came through my committee, I think I actually carried it. So he came to my office. This was a 2013. Came there and we sat down, we visited. And as we were talking, he was telling me his favorite, I don't know how the conversation come up, but my favorite cartoon as a kid was the Jetsons. He thought the Jetsons cartoon was the coolest thing, because they're all zipping. Remember, they're all in these little automobiles, and they're here, they're zipping everywhere. And it kind of brought me back to where I am. I'm 65, and I know that he's producing these cars. You can get in that car, and there's no driver, and it takes you wherever you want to go, and it's programmed. What I'm looking at doing, I don't have an EV, but I'm looking at, I might get one, put it there at my house in Georgetown, have it to where I can just go in with a level 2, plug it in at night. But I'm going to have, as I'm getting older and you can't get around, why not get one of those little Jetson cars, little EVs that he dreamt about, and it's come to fruition. You hop in that car, there's no driver. I want to go, take me to HEB. All right, I'm ready to go to the ranch, 2-hour drive, take me to the ranch, get in my truck and do my thing. I can see it as I'm getting 75, 85, maybe 90, jump in that little Jetson electric and take me to the ranch now. I'll just sit back and let's go to HEB, or take me to First Baptist Georgetown and do some worship in there. But you get in, it takes you there and it brings you back, and you plug it in, and then you do the same, you just keep doing it over. I'm seeing that as I'm getting older, that maybe in the next few years, I may go and get one of those self-driving vehicles that you just get in and it takes you where you want to go. As I get older, as you age in place, there's no reason why I can't stay at home as long as I can and have that little EV. I just jump in it. It knows me and takes me where I want to go. And you see them on these, was it Waymos in Austin? These cars driving around without it. But I've heard that they're doing it now, where these Teslas. So that's what I'm looking to do. I'm going to try to get one maybe the next few years and just try it out and say, jump in there and take me to Con Spring Ranch. And it keeps giving you independence for the elderly as we age. And I'm thinking that makes a lot of sense, because most people, they got to take the car keys away from dad when he's 85, is dangerous or going to kill somebody. He's driving too slow on the road. Well, don't take the keys away from them, get them an EV and just jump in and go. And that's what I think the future is. And that's what I'm trying to fulfill Elon Musk, his dream as a kid watching the Jetsons. And I'm going to do that in Georgetown, Texas, jump in my little Tesla, whatever it is. I'm not sure what they called, but jump in that and go. And I may have gotten sidetracked on that, Dr. Rhodes, but when you said the next generation, that made me think about, like, I had to take the keys away from my dad, and he was 88. It's hard. You don't have that independence anymore. It's gone. But if you have a little EV, you jump in it, it takes you to wherever you want to go, and you still have your independence. You live at home, you age in place, and that's a positive, good thing for that. Anyway, so I'm going to do that in honor of Elon Musk, get my little Jetson automobile. It may look like a flying saucer. I don't know, but I'll be zipping around Georgetown. So there he goes. Or I'll be on the road to the Pecan Spring Ranch. Who's that crazy man in that driverless car? Well, that's John Davis.
I tell you, there's plenty of them driving around my neighborhood. I think they use some of the part of town I live in to train some of those. So if you want to come get a close eye view of one, we can. Maybe Elon will let you get in one of them rockets too one day while we're at it.
Yeah. I think I want to stay at the ranch.
Okay, maybe. We'll see.
I'm going to stay at the ranch. I'll watch them go up in the stars, but I'm going to stay at PSR.
Oh, fair enough. Keep your feet grounded. I mean, but in Menard, didn't you put in an EV charging station at the Menard station? Am I remembering that?
I sure did. And that's another thing, if you don't mind me just dropping on, adding to that, by me having the wind and that extra income has provided me a little bit of discretionable income to where I've done a little economic development in Menard. It's 2 acres, an old Exxon gas station. We pulled out 3 of those gas tanks. This has been a 3.5-year project. And the first thing my daughter-in-law says, Papa Jed, after I bought it, this needs to be an EV charging station. I said, hell, I never thought about that. So after 3.5 years, and one of the last things we put in was an EV charging station. So I have one there. It's a Liberty Plug out of New York. And I talked to the manager in San Saba. They have one in San Saba, but there's the guy his name was Denver. But then the Denver said his mentor has been a guy out of Fredericksburg. They have 3 or 4 of them. So I called him and he said, John, you got to go with Liberty Plugs. And so he gave me their contact. I called them. So they sold me their latest and greatest. So it's a level 2 chargers. I was at the station this morning. There's a lady driving through in her Mustang and she was charging it up. It's being used. She said, we're trying to get to Amarillo. They only have 36 miles. I need to get some more juice. So she's charging up to get her to the next stop. But yes, back to my point, I've been able to develop the Menard station to where it's an educational. I have some sheep there and goats there. I have peacocks, chicken, ducks. I have turtles, fish. And we have a music stage. We're about to start a beer garden. It's called Range Canning Company Beer Garden, where we're going to start that. When you were there, I don't think the stage was built yet, Dr. Rhodes, but it's built. We think this next couple months, we're going to start selling Wagyu. I'm talking to Hudson's Meat there in Austin. Hudson's Meat. Anyway, he's going to make Wagyu Frank hot dogs for me. So we're making from the Wagyu beef, but we're going to be selling them at the beer garden. My point is, a little extra income from the ranch, from the wind turbine gives me extra disposable income. We've done a 2-acre development there in Menard. It's going to be a music station, festival. We teach kids about sheep. It's Laura Bush designated us as Texan by nature. Then we're a monarch way station for pollinator. I'm using a guy named Bill Neiman out of Native American seed. Pollinators. They did Ladybird Park, and then Bill's in Junction, Texas. So he came over and he personally oversaw the development of that. So it's a weight pollinator, and we got beer going. We got selling native plants. My cousin's a native master naturalist. So she's going to start selling plants, and she's going to sell Dickie Doodle Wagyu hot dogs. And we're going to be selling beer, and we're going to have live music on Friday nights and Saturday nights. And I might even have a little church service on Sunday, to get some of those sinners in on a Sunday. It is a cool area, and we have a family tree there, and we sell our Wagyu beef there and our Dorper lamb there. And it's also provide free reverse osmosis water and free coffee for the community, but they give donations back. They come in and we get about $400 or $500 a month, and they get the water. And it's kind of a community area, and it's a book exchange. and all that. So it's really pretty cool. But again, a little extra wind money gives me some money where I can give back to the Menard community. And I do have that EV charging station. So it's been sell fresh farm eggs too. They got eggs there for sale and, onions, jalapenos. We have a vegetable exchange table. People have extra squash. Everybody has so much extra zucchini. Drop off the squash. And anyway, it's kind of a cool area. But again, the wind and all that stuff helps to make all that happen,
No, that's great. Hudson's great. That's where I took that Axis after I got it off your place.
They do a really good job. I like this guy. I think it was Thompson or Thomas, I think.
Man, but I tell you, I'm going to have to give me some of them Wagyu hot dogs. I've never heard anyone making Wagyu hot dog. That sounds real good.
He actually called it Wagyu Franks. I tried one last night. It was excellent. So I'm taking I have like 100 pounds. He's going to make them into Wagyu hot dogs. And he also said we can make some bratwurst. Is that what you call it?
Think so.
He's going to make those for me too. So we're going to make kind of a German theme, this stuff too. So I got to get you back out to the ranch, Dr. Rhodes.
Yeah, no, I'd love to come out there and see what all would have done. It sounds like it's going to be a hoot out there at the station. So one final question, kind of wrap it up. I mean, you've seen Texas from the capital to the ranch. What do you wish more Texans understood about, the people whose land hosts the infrastructure that powers the state and the economic miracle that it is?
We take care of our land.
Yeah.
We're environmentalists. We protect our land. We want to protect the lot. Just this morning, I'm at the ranch. I see some Bob Whites. And I see about 10 baby little quail just running around. We want to protect them. We want to protect our environment. And I just hate this perception that, well, you're the Green New Deal. You're like AOC. That's all you are, an environmentalist, So I kind of joke around. I had this PhD student from Berkeley who came out to visit the ranch to see a wind turbine. I had her hug a wind turbine. So there you go, hug a turbine. But it's not AOC. It's not the Green New Deal. It's conservative. It's smart. There are multiple wins, no pun intended, but it's win. There are multiple on all facets for the ranch, the landowner. It helps the community. It helps the education system. It provides tax dollars back to the county. And the counties they should have given abatement because they can have a say-so on what happens to either be wind or be it solar or battery or they give a little bit of money, they're at the table. They can control these projects. And it becomes good for the community. It becomes build roads, build your potholes. But it's just the perception, and it's the Green New Deal. It's AOC. Well, it's not. It's John Davis, West Texas, conservative, landowner, steward of the land, strong property rights, so I can keep being a producer to help, one, feed America, one, provide national defense, diversification, develop AI, encourage these things, which helps us keep growing as a state. And we're always very proactive in Texas. We're always looking for new innovations. We're not sticking our head in the sand. It was Republicans who came up with conservatives. Speaker Laney was a Democrat there, and George Bush was there too. And then you had Perry and Laney, and we have Tom Craddock has been supportive of it. It's a bipartisan thing. It's not energy and good, clean energy and renewable power. It shouldn't be polarizing. It should be unifying. But again, primary politics, I'm just really disappointed in my party being so denigrating of you can still raise your sheep underneath them. You can still run cows. You can still deer hunt. It doesn't affect it. It just gives us another source of income. And I just wish my party would stop. But again, it's the moneyed interests. Nothing different. It's Hunt, be the Hunts or whoever, but it's the Wilkes brothers and it's Tim Dunn, and they just want to be kingmakers. They're in the Republican primary politics, and they're just have a lot of lackeys that would just follow along. So, okay, because I guess their fear, we're going to use too much wind and we're not going to have enough for our natural gas. Well, hell, there's a lot of people want our natural gas. We have ships coming now from the Hormuz Straits shut down. So we got ships, containers coming to America. So let's keep growing, but don't shut out rural Texas and don't denigrate us. We're just trying to be a part of the solution and be innovative and creative. I'm not sure if I answered your question. I start rambling, Dr. Rhodes, and sometimes you can't shut me up,
That works just fine. And actually, that's a great place to kind of end there. So, John Davis, thank you for coming on the Energy Capital podcast.
Honored to be it. I hope you'll invite me back.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to the Energy Capital podcast. If today's conversation helped you make better sense of how the energy system actually works, share the episode with a colleague and hit follow on your podcast app. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the usual platforms. For deeper analysis and context each week, subscribe to the Texas Energy Empower at texasenergyempower.com. That's where you'll find every episode, every article, and our latest updates. We're also on LinkedIn, X, and YouTube, where we share clips, insights, and ongoing commentary on energy policy, markets, and the grid. Before we go, a quick note. The views expressed on this podcast are my own and do not represent the official positions of the University of Texas, Idea Smiths, Austin Energy, or Columbia University. A big thanks to Nate Peavy, our producer. I'm Joshua Rhodes. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.